his screws loose, they done stripped the bolts on him. Shoulda never sent him to pick up the work for me. Sprayed the park and had my shit inside the car. Marcus Smart boy was shooting with a 36 on him. Said if he wasn't in the rush, they was all gone.
Alrighty. Good evening, Chudlings. It's Wednesday, November 8th, just before 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to another game recap of Chud on Chuddy's Corner. I'm your host, Doug Outs, here as always with King Chuddy. Also today we have a special guest, NBA Analyst, NBA expert, Jeff Cupka. He's joining the show as well. Jeff, happy to have you here. How's it going tonight?
It's going great, man. Thanks for having me. I started listening to the podcast at the beginning of the year. Loved what I heard. I immediately had to text you and say, get me on to do a segment. So pleasure being on here, and I thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have you, and appreciate the listens. Always good to have people on. Anyone listening else at home, if you consider yourself an NBA analyst, just reach out to us, and you can do that most easily on Twitter. Follow the page at King Chuddy. Also, my Twitter name at Doug_Outs. We have at King Chuddy. You can also find everything for the podcast hosted on nickperino.com. Special thanks to our sponsor, nickperino.com. Everything you need for real estate. So, yeah, you can find all different ways to get through with us. You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music. We're going to get a YouTube page up. We're pretty much going to be on everywhere. I don't have the full list in front of me. We're going to try to get it anywhere you can stream something. We're going to get to it. But Spotify and Apple are probably the two easiest ways, and hopefully that YouTube page will be up and running soon as well. We'll get into tonight's recap. Celtics lose another one, back-to-back games, this time to the 76ers, 106-103. The final score probably makes the game look a little bit closer than it felt watching the game. But again, so Celtics fall to 5-2 on the season. They end the road trip with 2 losses, coming back home on Friday. But we'll before we get into that, let's take a look at the Sixers game. Jeff, since you're the guest, we'll let you kind of give us, what did you think watching this game? Really a classic Sixers-Celtics battle, but what are your thoughts? What's your takeaway on the Celtics 106-103 loss?
Yeah, you beat me to it. I mean, it feels like every time the Celtics and the Sixers play, it's never a pretty game. And I think part of that is the personnel the Sixers have versus what the Celtics like to do on offense a little bit. I think high level, anytime you're dealing with Embiid down low and the driving lanes are tight and it's tough to finish around the rim, if you shoot, I don't know what they ended up at, 25% from 3, I think it was around for the game, it's going to be tough to win. Ending of the game, final score definitely made it seem closer than it was. Couple notes I had was just besides the poor shooting, Embiid was eating per usual. I thought it was pretty interesting that Nurse was using him as a kind of like a Rob Williams role for a lot of the game, kind of roaming around the paint instead of being assigned. I think we saw early on just his presence that was felt down low. Really tough game for the Jays, specifically Brown. He kind of turned it on late to get him back into it, but that was a tough outing for both of them. Tatum weirdly not involved in the game at all, at least not enough as he should have been, in my opinion. Part of that was what Philly was doing on defense, I think making it really tough for him. But overall, tough loss. End of the road trip. We'll be back at the Garden later this week. Hopefully turn things around. But, yeah, I mean, 2 good teams, 2 losses, 2 tight games where they played tough on the road. So not hitting the panic button yet, but might be time to start rethinking how good this team actually is after a lot of hyperbolic talk around their 5-0 start. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think the threes were definitely an issue. There was a couple late threes. I think that bumped up the percentage. But yeah, we had to shoot a lot of threes, and they weren't falling. Chud, you heard what Jeff had to say. What's your takeaways? Anything that stands out that you agree with, disagree with? What do you think about the game?
I think for the most part, NBA analyst Jeff Cupka pretty much hit a lot of my points on the head. I thought what he led with was so true about Embiid's presence down low, which I think is a huge reason why the Celtics started off the game really well. We had an 11-point lead, I think either early in the second or late in the first, and I actually really liked the way we were playing early. I thought we came out super aggressive. We were pushing the pace a ton. 8 assists to 2 turnovers in the first quarter, and we were turning them over, getting out, running 9 fast break points, really kind of dictating the way the game was going. It seemed like we were almost cruising a little bit. Everyone was kind of playing well. Fascinating to see, in a way, that we started off Drew covering Embiid by design, just straight up, which he did pretty well with. I mean, Embiid got a couple of easy ones, but that's going to happen against almost anyone. He definitely caused some issues there. But I think, again, a part of that is because Embiid, I mean, absolutely dominates Porzingis, and we saw that a little bit, that they really don't want Porzingis guarding Embiid at all, basically. So it's kind of Drew and then Al when he came in, and we saw Sixers exploit that when they got a chance. And then what you said about Nurse putting Embiid in a bit of a Rob role is true, and that kind of stifled our offense. The other thing that was working for us early is getting Embiid into the action with Porzingis, which is one of the huge reasons why Porzingis is on the team and how we can really unlock our offense to another level. Bring him Porzingis out to the perimeter. Embiid can't leave him. He's way too good of a shooter, so Embiid has to come up, drags him away from the bucket. And you saw both Tatum and Brown and I think White and even Drew all got to the hoop for easy layup because Embiid just had to be out there. So good adjustment by Nurse. Basically switched him onto Drew, and they were kind of daring Drew and to a lesser extent Derek, some of those other guys to hit shots, and we weren't hitting tonight, which makes it tough. And then after the first quarter, it was really, really all downhill. Like you said, the final score was misleading. We were down 14 after being up 11. So for most of the game, we basically got dominated. Big part of that, again, not being able to make shots. And just the way we were playing offense, it got very stagnant. All of those fast break points went away. The ball movement went away. It was a lot of kind of just like random driving, settling for threes. Honestly, Hauser came in and caught fire, and that kept us in the game. Where I thought we could have been down by like 15 or so at halftime. Came in the second half, kind of picked up where we left off. And I mean, that second quarter was bad. The third quarter was just like a rock fight for the ages. Both teams back and forth. Nothing was really going at all. They made a few more than us, but I mean, it was pretty bad both ways. Same thing. Hauser made a few shots. I mean, we were working Porzingis around the basket, but I think the final tallies are a little misleading, where I think we kind of played into their hands, kind of dragging the game out that way. Porzingis ended up putting a lot of points, but like you said, it really took both of the Jays out of it. I wrote down the same thing. I mean, this team, Philly has a lot of good players and some good defenders, but they really don't have anyone who scares me matching up with Tatum. I think he's got to find a way to be way more aggressive, way more involved. So, again, Porzingis, the final stats were nice, but I think we kind of played into their hands, and it really slowed our offense down. The late flurry with 2 minutes left in the fourth, again, very misleading. Awful night for Jaylen, obviously, for the most part. But
yeah, we'll get into that.
And one thing is, I just hate I can't handle every single game microanalyzing every single thing about Jaylen because of this contract. Like, He's a very good player who's going to have some bad nights and has some flaws, and it's way more good than bad. So it's like every time he has a bad game, or people are going to be like, well, this is the highest paid player in the league.
Like, I think we should save the Jaylen talk. I think that deserves its own kind of discussion.
That's fine. But one thing I will say, again, and we kind of mentioned it earlier, is that, all the box score boys are going to be calling for Jaylen's head, but he played unbelievable defense on Maxey. And again, Maxey put up a lot of points, but he took 27 shots and scored 25 points. And I think he probably scored like 14 of those in the very few minutes Jaylen went out. He was absolutely torching everyone else. Jaylen, with his speed and size, stayed in front of him. He obviously had that block on him on the second to last possession, which how many guys in the league are staying with Tyrese Maxey on that move? So his defense was incredible tonight. And a few of the screens, he had that like spin move around and beat screen and stuck right on Maxey's hip. Like, that was really impressive. So as bad as the offense was, he was really good on defense, and we need guys to contribute in other ways. But again, just a very lackluster performance on offense, and you see that intensity in the last 2 minutes almost makes it more frustrating, because it's like, where was this for the last, second absolutely. And the entire third quarter, and even most of the fourth, just never really got going. One last thing, really, before we go into some finer details. I think I mentioned it to you this morning, Doug Outs, but this Philly team, now that they got free of Simmons, they got free of Harden. Like, on paper, they might not have as much talent, but it's just like the vibes are so much better, and you don't get that same feeling. Like, I know they kind of almost blew it, but I just feel so much better about that team. Nurse, I hate him so much, but he's such a damn good coach. The way he's got them playing, it's just like, it seems like they're having fun. They have so much more pace. Harden just pounds the ball into the ground. With Harden and Embiid, it was like, even if you're a Philly fan, you must have found that team somewhat unwatchable, and it's just so much more enjoyable, and it shows, and they just have a whole different vibe about them that, like, I'm not just saying this before the game. You can attest. I said to you this morning, I take them way more seriously as a contender now than I feel like I have since they had Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. I mean, just to touch on that point, they actually feel like a real basketball team. just with the players that they have. So I definitely agree with that. You mentioned that this morning. I agree. Watching the game, I agree with it too. They didn't shoot themselves in the foot. I know I texted both you guys during the game kind of expecting Embiid to sort of run out of gas, but then Nurse didn't even put him in for the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. And in that time, Maxey kind of took over and had a pretty kept them sort of ahead for a while. But it was almost weird watching a coach not completely misuse Embiid down the stretch like that and to their detriment. So they definitely feel like a more put together basketball team.
And especially funny because Nurse was known in Toronto for absolutely running his guys into the ground. So hopefully that'll play out as the year goes on. But he did see pressure. But again, other guys doing more. I mean, Maxey had more shot attempts than him tonight. So
Maxey absolutely buoyed them. I think the first part of the fourth quarter with that float
really
game. That float game that he has is just it's absurd. He doesn't miss those. It feels like whenever he gets into the paint.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch a guy be that fast with the basketball in his hand too. So to your point, I think that we didn't really have anyone who could cover him besides Jaylen did do a pretty good job covering him. I want to touch base too on that second quarter. We all mentioned the second quarter. Outscored 39-27 in the second quarter. I feel like from then it was all downhill. That third quarter was 20-17, so it was a 37-point quarter. It was just it's a total rock fight. I think that was kind of once that happened, you sort of felt like the game was going to be hard for us to come back because, again, it just changes our style so much. We weren't getting to the rim, which I think was in that 5-0 start. Specifically, Tatum was driving hard to the rack in those games, and he was driving. I've noticed more to driving to finish, not driving to draw a foul, which I think was an issue with him a lot towards the end of last year. So, but you didn't see any of that this year or tonight, I should say. So it was frustrating. I think he had 15 rebounds, which is good, but I do think he was being very passive. There was a lot of times he'd get the ball somewhat open around the 3-point line, and not necessarily saying he needed to shoot the three, but he was kind of passing the ball up. It was just kind of a very pedestrian sort of day for Tatum. And, to your point, that might have been part of the game plan. Let Porzingis kind of eat and keep the Jays out of it, specifically Tatum. But, Porzingis did have a pretty good game, except on defense. There was a few plays with Embiid where he ended up on Embiid, and it was just tough to watch. He's just getting absolutely bully down there. So it's going to be interesting. I think that this rivalry, I don't want to overreact to the one game, but I do think that it's going to be a little bit closer than we've experienced. They're definitely I feel like you have to respect Sixers a little bit more this year, just with who they have, more specifically who they don't have anymore. Just the coaching and everything like that just seems like it's a much more put together team. I think the first thing we should probably maybe get into is Jaylen's night. So. You mentioned the defensive side of things, but offensively, again, I think this is one of those nights where the Jaylen haters are going to absolutely be feasting on his performance tonight. I do agree that you can't really always look at it in the lens of that contract because, like you said, that in 2 or 3 years, that contract is going to be a pretty standard contract for most players, most top 2 players on an NBA team. But again, he finished 4 for 13 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3-point. Those 2 came very late in the game. So, I think there's I think we lead the league, and this isn't just a Jaylen thing, but I think we lead the league in guys just falling over with the ball in their hand. That's sort of become a frustrating thing that I feel like I'm seeing more of. I don't really know how to explain why it happens. I mean, sometimes it's a double team, sometimes it's something else, but we just fall over with the ball, and I think Jaylen would be kind of the ringleader. I was ready to kind of let loose on him, but he got it back into the game towards the end. But again, there's a lot of these games where sometimes it feels like he just sort of has this tunnel vision and just can't make a shot and doesn't become a facilitator or anything like that. He had 2 assists. So I don't know. I guess Jeff, you can go first. What did you think about Jaylen's night?
I think Jaylen just had a rough shooting night, but I think it was kind of a symptom of the broader team as well, where you saw them revert to – I don't want to call it the old Celtics because we saw it as recently as a year ago, but this late shot clock offense of settling for threes and chucking despite them not going in. It felt that way a little bit tonight, but I don't know how much of that was just Philly scheming us up well and preventing us from getting into our offense and taking away the interior. But there was just a lot of lazy 3-pointers, I thought, tonight. There were some good ones, but there were also some chucks, especially from Jaylen and I thought from Tatum at times as well. And, yeah, those those are tough performances. They're great when they're going in, and Jaylen's the type of player that is capable of getting hot and keeping us in a game. Would have been nice to have tonight. We've seen him do it earlier in the year, but I didn't see a lot of drives to the basket. And again, part of that's, I think, just the Embiid factor. And we saw it even a little bit against the T-Wolves, I thought, with Towns and Gobert. I think this team struggles a little bit with big men. And that's something they're going to have to figure out offensively as the season goes on.
Yeah. Ben, let me ask it to you simply this way. Did Jaylen Brown have a good night tonight?
He definitely did not have a good night for his standards overall. But again, I just think the contract is over. The contract is signed. It is what it is. You wanted to build this team.
I agree on that part.
You can't have it both ways, and analyzing every single game under that lens is so dumb. Does he have to play better than tonight? Obviously, yes. Is he going to almost every night? Yes, obviously. If he plays like this and we're 40 games into the season and he's averaging 13 points a game on 30% shooting, yeah, we can have a conversation. But this idea that there's like Jaylen haters out there, it's like, well, are you a Celtics fan? Then why you hate the second best player on the team and you want to like jump on him every time he has a bad game? Is just, I don't even understand. Like, how do you root for a team like that? It makes no sense to me. Secondly, I think I don't want to underestimate, like, we want this team, people are talking like this is a super team and we have 4 stars, 6 studs, whatever. Then for that to work, guys have to accept the role. Jaylen should focus on the things he's good at. If we have Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Jason Tatum, why would he be initiating offense? He's obviously not. That's not his skill. He's a shooter. He's a scorer. Those are the things you should focus on. He had a bad shooting night. He only shot 13 times. Like, it wasn't like he was forcing up and shot, went 4 of 22 and shot them out of the game. He could have been more aggressive. He didn't have a good shooting night. It is what it is. He was guarding their best player and doing an amazing job, and I'm sure that made him tired too. Like, you want him to stick to his role, fine. Like, if he's taking the ball, then I like our offense better when Derek White or Tatum is running it, and even to a slightly lesser extent, possibly Holiday. So it's just like you can't have it both ways with this stuff. And then what Jeff said, very good point. I meant to mention, we saw this last game too, where this is definitely the big question mark going into the season, is teams that actually have big men and can muscle us. The T-Wolves did a great job with it. Gobert was a beast in the paint, and they were able to make it work because of Naz Reid and Cat too, so other bigs to match up better with ours, where without, having a Rob or a Grant, we just don't have any real big versatility. That's why we were forced to have Drew guarding Embiid. We started the second half trying Porzingis on Embiid. First possession, foul. Second possession, foul. Porzingis out of the game. We had to go to Al super early, and that's what made the offense all stodgy, because then Embiid can basically hide, just stay under the basket, play goalie. We don't have Porzingis. We're not running dribble handoffs, pick and pops, all that stuff. And it just completely takes us out of what we can want to do. And as soon as he was out of the game, it was like we had no real game plan. So all the kind of benefits that he's supposed to give us are gone. And again, that's why you said Tatum at 15 rebounds. Yeah, because most of the game, he's, unless Al's in there, and even sometimes when he is, Tatum's like kind of the closest thing we have to an actual big man. So I think that's, if everyone's kind of just like adjusting to new roles that are a little weird, it's obviously going to take some time. Again, I think we were probably spoiled by the first couple wins, which were, in retrospect, closer games than we probably realized. Could have easily lost those Knicks and Heat game, and we'd be looking at everything a lot differently. We won those, and then we obviously had those massive blowouts, and we're thinking, this is an all-star team. And it's like, no, there's some growing pains. There's some serious flaws. There's some things that we need to figure out. And a lot of them were on display and exposed tonight. And, that's why we have an 82-game season.
So to your point about he's not necessarily the guy who's going to be a playmaker, well, he does seem to take the ball up the court a lot for a guy that you're saying shouldn't be running the offense, that's not his strength.
He's going to run it some, but we have 4 guys who in the starting lineup who are going to be, quote-unquote, running the offense. So it's just like, you want him to do more, but, we have a lot of guys who can do more. So, I don't know. I don't want him to also think like he has to force it. And, again, the contract, I think, if anything, should be like a weight off his shoulders. You have this security now. You don't have to go get stats. You don't have to make All-NBA. Like, play your role, pick your spots, work towards your best strengths. If that means, like, your individual stats take a little bit of a hit, I'm fine with that. Like, he doesn't need to average 30 and 10 assists. That's never going to happen.
He's averaging 23 points a game, so it's not like he's averaging.
No, absolutely. He just had a bad night.
And I'm not a Jaylen hater by any stretch. I just know that there's people out there. Again, I think it has a lot to do with the contract, but for some reason, it's like the things he does poorly, I feel like, I don't know, maybe they just stick out more. I don't know.
Yeah,
It might be a
he
turnovers.
definitely has some plays that are infuriating to watch. Like there was one at the beginning of the fourth quarter tonight where it looked like Philly saw that he was guy taking up the ball, and they were just like, "Hey, we can fuck with this guy."
They all just
blitzed him with
attacked
two
him,
guys,
yeah.
and he didn't pass. He just tried to dribble through like 4 defenders. Obviously, did a spin move, lost the ball, led to a fast break, and yeah, that is like one atrocious play that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's equivalent to a guy on the other end just like losing their man and letting up a backdoor layup. But that's not a play that everyone's going to remember the next day. So, like you said, the mistakes are ugly and like low light, real ugly. But
I think we know his flaws as a player. Still worth the money. Still worth the money.
I think so too. I have no problem with the contract.
And again, if the flaws,
if
you're saying we know those
bringing
flaws, and we have 2 point guards in Tatum, then why put him in more situations for the other teams to expose those flaws? Like the whole point of getting those other guys and then paying Jaylen, again, the contract thing, we can relitigate forever. That was the cost to keep him. The choice was to not keep him.
And it's worth
so
it.
It's him or nothing. It's not our money. Like, who cares? Look, we added 2 more guys who make over $30 million. After that contract was done, like we traded for Porzingis, who makes $36 million, and Drew, who makes like the same. So it's not like we signed Jaylen and now it's like, oh, we can never get an expensive player again. Like they already crushed all those narratives. Like you said, the contract will look worse. If every time he has a bad game, this is going to be a talking point. It's like sports radio.
It's not a talking point for me because of the contract. I just think it's like I think what really got me was that play you just talked about, where you just tried to dribble through 4 guys and just fell over. Definitely. And at that point, I had already written in my notes that we lead the league in falling over. So it just
bad play.
Again. And I'm a big Jaylen fan. I'm fine with the contract. I'm glad we signed him. He's worth it, and I think he's a great player. And when he has a good game, he doesn't get enough credit for it. Right. But it's just I don't know. Maybe it's like I'm thinking of it from like a sociological standpoint, like why. It seems like when Jaylen has a bad game, and I guess maybe it is the contract with other people, but
it's like, so now that he's the highest paid player, should he be the focal point of our offense? Like that would be stupid.
Yeah.
So,
I think he needs to stop putting the ball up as much as he does.
Well, I guess I don't know that he's taking it up like that much. I'm
gonna get a little thing to clock it. I'm gonna write down how many times.
Keep track of this going forward. We'll get our intern.
Can we get the Chuddy Corner intern? Can we get we have the Chuddy Corner intern. We're gonna get him on that. We're gonna get those stats up for you. Yeah. Jeff, do you have anything else? I mean, it sounds like you're not too down on Jaylen. I don't know if you have anything else to add about Jaylen or anything like that.
Not about Jaylen, but I don't know if Tatum's somebody we want to talk about, because I thought he was weirdly uninvolved tonight. And again, not sure how much of that is what Philly was doing on defense, but I don't feel like I saw him take the ball up and initiate the offense early on in the shot clock as much as I normally do. And I don't know if it was him being tired or him just not being in it tonight. You would think he would be against the Sixers in Philly for a big rivalry game. But I don't know. I thought his performance tonight was honestly, like, just given his expectations and what our expectations are of him, was a little more lackluster than what Jaylen's was, despite the poor shooting night from Jaylen. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think that Tatum was playing like a guy, and this might be controversial, I think he was playing like a guy who had sex before the game. Like he was just like, they say you're not supposed to do that on game day. You guys probably played more sports than me, but I don't know. He just was playing like he was just too relaxed. It got really quiet after I made that take, so I don't know if that's crazy, but he was just sort of playing like he just had already accomplished what he was looking to do for the day. I don't know. It just was a very pedestrian day. Ben, we'll take it over to Chud. Do you think that Jason Tatum had sex this morning?
Probably, but he didn't have like his typical Tatum stat line. Certainly, again, I think a lot of it does come down to more of a stylistic thing, where I think, especially with the way we had the matchups, where it's Drew guarding Embiid and Porzingis is outside, like Tatum has to focus on the rebounding and doing stuff like big, which he was doing a ton of the game. And I think that stuff like wears people out more than you think when he's crashing the defensive glass. Like that's another thing with Porzingis. Like he can do a lot, and when there's not like a huge guy down there. But one thing that is already kind of driving me nuts and has always been a problem is, for a guy as big as he is, he's just like not a very good rebounder. It seems like he gets his hand. He doesn't have like very good hands or soft touch on those balls, and it seems. I mean, when he finished like 2 defensive rebounds, like how is that even possible?
He does exactly what my coach in high school would scream at me not to do when I would go up for a rebound. I would go up with it and I'd bring the ball back down to my knees and it would get slapped away by a guard.
Yeah.
I feel like he does that 4 or 5 times a game.
He's losing it left and right. He's getting pushed around.
Got to
by
get back
guys
to
who
the
are-
fundamentals.
But yeah, I mean that's tough, and I think it's a point of emphasis for Tatum. Like he knows if we're going to play that lineup where it's one big, and that big is again Porzingis, who's really just a guard in a big body almost. Like Tatum is down there, and I think you can't kind of underestimate how much kind of strain that puts on just his body over the course of a game when he's working that hard. I mean, he had 14 rebounds through 3 quarters. I know that. I wrote down he had 11 and 14 with like 2 minutes left in the third quarter. So I think part of it he's probably just gassed. Part of it again, yeah, I think Philly was focusing on trying to make other guys beat them, which everyone always tries to do. And I think no matter how good the supporting cast is, obviously you don't want Tatum to get going. He made a few nice plays. He was probably could have been more aggressive. I mean, we saw the first few possessions. They had Kelly Oubre on him. It's one of the first plays of the game. He absolutely shook him out of his shoes and walked in for an easy dunk. I was like, oh, this is going to be a long night. But again, good adjustments by Nurse. They were way more aggressive on him, and they found a way to keep him beat under the basket. So it was hard to drive. Certainly not Tatum's best night, but again, like I don't read too much into it other than, maybe just like a little too much sacks.
Yeah, I think the story coming out of this game isn't the Celtics. It's, Philly is a legit team, right?
Yeah.
I think the Celtics had an off night, and Philly has addition by subtraction with some of the moves they've made, and Nurse being there. And I'm with you. I'm not a huge Nurse fan, but he is a good coach. And I definitely was burying dirt on them during the offseason and during all of this Harden drama. And I'm definitely rethinking that stance after this one.
Yeah, I wonder if too the team we just sort of came into it assuming it'd be the same old Sixers might have been a little bit of a. My other theory was we might be looking ahead to the in-season tournament.
That's what I was thinking.
Off, so.
No, I think the stuff about Philly is definitely true. I think maybe not like literal addition by subtraction, but it's just the way they play, the pieces fit together better, and it showed. And I mean, the Celtics again. It's like no matter what we change, some things stay the same, and that's like. When we're not hitting threes, it's tough to win. And I know we made that push at the end, but if we're going to shoot this poorly from 3, we're not going to win a lot of games against good teams. It's going to be hard to overcome that, especially against a pretty good team like Philly. I thought overall, like our defense was really good, considering the personnel we have and now don't have to match up with Embiid. Like he made some good shots. He played fine, but he didn't crush us. I think he finished with 27. Like that's under his season average. I'm totally fine with that. Again, Maxey had a lot of points, but on a shitload of shots. Like that, really didn't have any problems with the defense almost through the whole game. A few bad stretches here and there, but I was fine with it overall. I liked when the Celtics were pressing, which I've liked again. I wish they would do it more. I thought it was super interesting with like 9 minutes left in the fourth. I think down 10, we went with a lineup with both Jays on the bench, which you almost never see, and they had the 3-point guards, Pritchard, White, and Drew, and went into that press right away, and it caused a little bit of trouble. Philly adjusted pretty quickly and figured it out. The other thing just about Philly, like you said, that was a takeaway, which is a takeaway, but another takeaway, their bench is so shitty. Like, for all the talk about our bench, did you look at the guys they have on their bench? Like, just awful players. So they...
Pat Bev,
has to be one of the... Like, he's unplayable. They got to find a way to get him off the court. Korkmaz, obviously, is not playable. Batum... How is he not washed? Like, what is going on? Covington. B-Ball Paul is probably like their best bench player. I think if they don't make a move, it's a no-brainer at some point. They have to find a way to bring Kelly Oubre off the bench just so they have someone off the bench who can score. Would make sense. And then the one other thing about the Harden trade is they picked up those assets. So Philly probably has another move because they grabbed 2 first-round picks and now they have all those tradable contracts. So Philly's not done. I think this is far from the final form we'll see of their team.
Jeff, what'd you have?
Sorry for butting in there. Are we sure we wouldn't take Philly's bench over the Celtics bench right now?
I was just about to get into our bench.
Yes.
So
Horford is so much better than anyone on Philly's bench.
That's a perfect segue, I think. So we'll get into the bench right now. So Hauser seemed to have found his shot today, which is great.
Great game.
I think Pritchard, we definitely have to talk about Pritchard. He's going on almost 50 minutes now without a point scored. Again, he's a rebounding machine, which is great. And then also just a little bit of like kind of a a little sneaky stat here is Horford, who usually I feel like plays pretty well against Philly, finishes a minus 23. I know, Ben, I don't think you're much of a plus-minus stat guy, but
it's a team stat. It shouldn't be applied to players. It's so misleading. Al played well.
I thought he did all right. It seems like he's not hitting. I mean, maybe he's not doing as much. He's not out there as much, but he was 1 for 6 from 3. I feel like some of those shots that I was used to seeing him hit last year. It was
a few shots like anyone else.
But I don't know. Who do you want to dive into first? Do you want to talk Pritchard, or do you want to and save the positives of Hauser for last? Pritchard, he at what point, and it's like you could say at what point is he unplayable because you have to think about who comes in after that. That would obviously be probably more O'Shea Brissett minutes or something like that. Would that be a guy who would be next in? Or
if it's a point guard, I mean, Delano Banton, I guess, could get minutes at a certain point. I still think Pritchard has a longer leash like this than that, especially after this contract. And again, where we've seen him never struggle to shoot. Like, the one thing he's always been able to do is shoot. So
exactly, yeah.
He's just, I don't know if he's in his own head or what, but I mean, yeah, he had a couple more ugly shots. He's not shooting a ton, and he's doing everything else like okay. But yeah, he has been pretty brutal for the Celtics so far.
I think he's scared to shoot now. I think it is part of in his head.
Yeah, it could be
Jeff,
a little bit.
What are your thoughts on Pritchard or anyone really on the bench right now?
Yeah, I mean, I start with Pritchard because I root for the kid. I pull for him. And I'm just wondering if at this point, is he just somebody who needs to be used in a high usage manner to get into a rhythm and get cooking, or can he be a serviceable bench player in the NBA? And he just got a contract extension, so like he's not going anywhere, but it's been a rough start for him, and I hope he figures it out. I think you saw Hauser get a little more swagger in his shot, a little more confidence off those shots in this game, and I think in some previous games. And with Pritchard, it's the complete opposite. It's just ice cold immediately off the hand, and you're not expecting it to go in. And I don't know if he just requires more minutes because that's how he is as a player, and he's not going to get it. Have fun in Europe if that's the case. But
get ready to speak European, buddy.
Yeah. So I hope he figures it out. But it's been rough for him, and if it continues, they need to start considering who they're going to go after, either in buyout market, which I'm sure isn't great, but they probably need to add a bench piece or two.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I still struggle to think that Pritchard just isn't going to be able to shoot anymore. That is so crazy to me. I thought it was interesting tonight too. Like the Celtics, again, I keep saying this, but it's not sustainable. They basically played a playoff rotation tonight. Cornette played 3 minutes, and that was it. Other than that, it was just a few minutes of Hauser, a few minutes of Pritchard, and Al. Like, that is just, whether those guys are playing well or not, you need somebody else. I thought it was interesting. No, Brissett was not on the injury report, but did not play at all after I thought he'd been given some good minutes. They could have used a spark in the second or third quarter, so I was kind of surprised they didn't try.
Especially, I feel like what he brings, that kind of motor stuff, I think would have been kind of just what we needed. I think we were getting.
It wasn't like anyone was making a shot anyway, so it's not like you were taking off someone who was making any shots. Thought he could have got some run to see if he could change the energy, because it just, for pretty much the second and third quarter entirety, it just felt like Philly had more energy, and that was something that Pritchard used to be a guy who we would bring in to do that, but I think partially, again, just let him do a little more when he is in there, and I think again lean more on that press. Like, he's a scrappy little defender, even though he's small. And someone, who theoretically should have the quickness to stay with a guy like Maxey, could definitely bother someone like Melton, who doesn't have the best handle. So I'd like to see them get a little more aggressive and play a little faster when he is in, maybe more to his comfort zone. And then, I think Hauser was struggling too. We saw him hit one the other night, and since then it's like it clicked and he's back. So hopefully, Pritchard, one of these games, will hit his first shot, and then he'll be like, oh yeah, okay, and we'll be back. Because I think if those guys are hitting shots, I'm really not that worried about the bench. I'm worried about the bench, but it would be more from the vantage point that we talked about, where they should probably be looking for a big. But if they're getting nothing from Pritchard, then they got a few holes to try to fill probably. Again, that's why you got 82 games to figure it out.
I think it's a little in his head. He does seem like he's not even attempting shots at this point. There's one quick, and we're going a little over on time. Again, was expected anyway with the guest, but I do think that just Celtics fans, and again, this is just Twitter. It's just like the dumps of like the universe or whatever. But it's just kind of funny. Anytime that like Hauser, Pritchard, or Cornette are in, people are like, what are they doing in the game? And it's just like, I don't know who people thought our bench was going to be this year. It's just like, I just don't get it. People like, why are they still out there? It's like, I mean, I don't know, because like, that's what our bench is. I know that last year when we had like 4 bigs, it was weird to see Cornette out there, but you're going to see a lot more Cornette. And granted, tonight you didn't, but just generally speaking, it's just kind of bizarre just how much I see just people, again, it's Twitter is just very reactionary and things like that, but people just like, what are these 3 doing out there? It's like that is our bench unit. Like that is the bench unit.
That's the whole bench.
I think people need to get used to it again. Pritchard is not playing well. I do hope that he can shoot his way out of it. I think maybe that's what it's going to take, is him just going out. And I mean, what's the old saying? Like, was it Kobe or something that said, like, I'd rather go like 0 for 12 than 0 for 2 or something like that? Like, maybe he just
means he stopped shooting.
Release the demons, just keep shooting until eventually they start to fall, and he sees that ball go through the net, and sort of similar to Hauser, it might make a change for him. Does anyone else have any thoughts specifically on this game before we get into? We're going to talk a little bit of the offseason moves. Have Jeff's thought. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things, a couple notes from the game, or one note that stuck out to me. It was the second time I've seen it this year. The tech on Porzingis, I think it was at the end of the second, for hanging on the rim. Like, I don't want to turn this into an NBA refs suck rant, but what the hell? Like, can we not have any nice things? This is getting ridiculous.
He would have got hurt if you let go.
That one was
like you said, the refs didn't cost us the game. I thought it was a very poorly officiated game for certain stretches in the third quarter. But again, I think it was on both ways. The refs did not cost anyone the game. But that between that tech and that 125-second stretch where they called Embiid on the foul for diving for the ball, which I thought I don't think there was any need for a foul on that. I didn't think that was dirty. Right down the floor, they called it offensive on Jaylen Brown. They came back down and called it. It was just 25 seconds. The Celtics were almost in the bonus in 25 seconds. It's just like absurd. And again, didn't affect the outcome of the game, but just generally speaking, the officials are terrible. And that Porzingis tech was awful. He's got like 5 in the year now too.
I think that tech will get rescinded because, first of all, hang on the rim shouldn't be a technical. Who cares? If you're the other team,
it hurts your own
team. Go up the court. Yeah, but I mean, that one, again, he wasn't hanging as any form of showboating or whatever. It was literally just so he wouldn't fall. So I think they'll change that when they look awful. Overall, I didn't think the ref
they
was
should
bad.
find
they let him
that
play
ref
down the stretch.
Yeah.
Well, I thought they were letting him play, which is nice. That one play you mentioned where Embiid went down and it looked like Porzingis got rolled up. That was. My heart went up into my neck right there because it looked like his leg was about to snap, and that was just again. I mean, we keep talking about the bench and how brutal, especially it looked when Derek was out. It's like, man, we are one injury, knock on wood, but again, it just shows how much we're playing with fire, and especially now Porzingis with the guys we've lost, how we lose one big and. What Cornette's playing 24 minutes a game. Seriously, don't laugh.
We're trading for Tice.
Yeah,
I mean Tice makes too much sense to come
Tice
back.
Does, yeah. No, hopefully that will happen. And I saw there was actually an article on
slightly more talented Cornette. Maybe
we just need another body who could play.
Right? Yeah.
If they can't trust Cornette to play in real games, then we need someone.
Yeah. Anything else from either one of you guys just on the game before we get into some other stuff real quick?
No, it does it for me.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I think we mostly covered it. Again, just one regular season game at the end of the day. Still only the 7th game these guys have played together. And again, with the bench, like you were saying, just one more thing on the bench. I think part of it is that Celtics fans are just spoiled and brats by expecting all of their teams to be perfect no matter what. Look around the league, teams don't have good benches, really. Again, we just talked about Philly, they're probably the 2nd or 3rd best team in the East, and we've talked about the other one, the Bucks, numerous times, how they basically have 2 or 3 good players, and then their team is awful. So there's no team that has a sick bench unit coming in, and that's the price you pay for having 4 to 6 really, really, really good players. So
that goes back to I don't know what people expected. You're going to see more Cornette. Get used to it. Just learn to love it. Can't be with the one you love the one you're with. All right, we'll pivot to our next. So we're going to move. We're going to have a little bit of the offseason discussions here, specifically around the Marcus Smart trade. So, Jeff, you feel differently about the trade as Chud and I do. I'm definitely have become a little bit more at peace with it. I miss Marcus Smart. I loved Marcus Smart in the Celtics. However, I do think what we've seen so far has certainly been, has helped with that healing process. So, Jeff, give me your thoughts on the trade overall and the team since making that trade. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be up front. I was ready to trade Marcus 3 years ago. So this was long overdue to me. I've been adamant about that in group texts with you, Doug Outs, with other friends who are Celtics fans. So I'm definitely biased here, but I thought that trade was a home run. The fact that we got Porzingis and a 2024 first-round pick from Golden State, which we flipped into Drew, like, that's a steal and a no-brainer, and I don't think you guys would argue that either. You guys are basketball fans. I don't think there's any question that was a great move. But as far as Marcus goes, I just think a lot of his limitations outweighed the positives that this city and fan base fell in love with and completely overvalued. He's not a winning player. He's not. He never was. He makes some cool plays. He guards some big men sometimes, and it looks cool, and everybody's like, oh, my God, he's guarding Embiid. It's amazing. But he's not a winning player. And
explain what you mean by that.
I think he was holding this team back from reaching or winning a finals. And they reached a finals 1 year against Golden State, but I think in multiple years he was holding them back. And I think part of that was ego. And not like Joe not being able to take him out of lineups in the fourth quarter when Derek White is clearly a better player. I think by removing him from the team, you're empowering better players in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White. I mean, look at Derek White this year with no Marcus Smart. Like, he looks incredible, and he looked good last year with Smart on the team as well, but it's not less of a knock against Marcus on this point. It's more of you're giving better players and empowering better players to lead your organization and be that voice in the room, specifically in the locker room. And I think we all agree that's something that Tatum and Brown needed to do to fully mature and become the stars of the team that we all know that they are. So I think that's part of it. I think another part of this is team identity. Like, the flopping at the end of the games and the bitching to the refs and all of that stuff, I think, was completely and 100% coming from Marcus Smart. And Tatum this year, I think against the T-Wolves last game, he did a little bit of it, which I didn't really like, but there's less bitching at the refs. There's less falling on the floor at the end of games. It's a better product to watch, and it's a more likable team without him, in my opinion. And coupled with the acquisitions and the new players we brought on, and Drew, who's a better version of Marcus Smart, I don't think anybody can argue that. Maybe you guys will. I was super happy when they made the trade. I couldn't have been happier, and it's played out. First 5 games it's played out really nicely. These last 2, I don't think are a result of not having Marcus Smart by any means, but I couldn't be more thrilled by the trade, and I love the team and go green. I don't know what you guys think.
All right, Chud, go ahead. You look like you're frothing at the bit right now. So
I just don't even understand.
Keep this cordial.
I mean, I'm just kind of baffled by a lot of what he just said. I don't even really know where to begin. It's just a confusing take. I mean, the trade in itself, I think you could argue on a value wise, getting Porzingis and 2 first-round picks at the time for Smart is not an unreasonable value trade in a vacuum. We want to compare the overall 2 players, which is better, I don't know, whatever. It's debatable, I guess. But in terms of the not a winning player, I will not understand. He got drafted to a team that just won 25 games, made the playoffs in his first year, and made the playoffs every year since, with only twice being worse than a 3 seed. Deep playoff runs, almost year after year. I mean, conference finals nonstop. And again, he's a role player. You understand that, right? He's not a superstar. He's not going to a team and he does the little things. People all the time would send you box scores. Smart has 7 points. It's yeah, he's the team's 3rd or 4th best player. You can say that Drew is better than him. Again, I think they're pretty close, and I think they're both better at different things. say whatever you want, Marcus has clearly been a better playoff player. He raises his game in the playoffs. Drew has been terrible in the playoffs pretty much his whole career. I mean, we'll see how that ends up playing out. And again, Drew has better stats, but he's been like the number 2 guy on a team where Smart's playing the role of the 3rd or 4th guy. Again, he's an elite role player, which is all anyone ever wanted. The reason fans fell in love with him is because he did the dirty work and gave the team an identity of toughness. Like, what would even the identity of the team be right now? I'd say after 7 games, it's not totally clear other than like shooting a lot of threes. You say there's no one falling on the floor. I actually wrote that down as a negative tonight. I was like, without Marcus and Grant, where are the charges? Like, we don't have the same toughness. I mean, again, I never understood the people saying they don't like that he falls down. Like, he's clearly one of the best defenders in the entire league, and drawing offensive fouls, you understand, is good for the team, right? That means we get the ball. And it's a turnover.
When you don't get the foul, then that's not good because you have a guy.
Okay, but would you not agree that he's one of the best in the league, if not the best at drawing those calls? Like,
yeah, again, I'm the moderator here. I'm going to play a little both sides here. But I have a few things to respond to both, but keep going, Chud, if you have a few more things to add.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the whole ego leadership thing, like, I've listened to a zillion interviews with a zillion guys, and they kind of just laugh at that, and they're like, a guy is who he is. He's not just going to be like, oh, now I have to be the leader and start, like, talking up. Like, quiet guys, stay quiet. Everyone has their roles. I think for the most part, that's overblown. And I mean, again, it's just funny if that was the argument, like, the people who don't like Smart immediately changed course when they got Drew, because it's like, if your whole thing is, oh, empower the Jays, but then they get Drew, and it's like, well, Drew's a leader. Drew will be the voice in the locker room. Drew won a title, and it's just like, you can't have it both ways, and people just want to hate on this guy for every single thing he does when all he does is give his all on the court and win. Like, saying he held them back, again, is just lunacy. What other team or fan base is saying, like, their 4th or 5th or 3rd best player, a role player, is holding them back from a title? Like, I'm sorry. This is the NBA. Have you watched the NBA for the last 50 years? You win because of your best player, your best 2 players. One of your best players has to be, like, one of the best players in the world. The Jays could not get over the hump in the biggest games the last few years is the only reason we did not win a championship. The team was good enough with some variance and some things breaking in our favor to win the title the last 2 years. It didn't happen. Saying that's because of a role player who played fine is just crazy. And just, again, you say you have this bias against him. I don't get where that comes from. Like, he's a fan favorite for, I think, obvious reasons. You might not think he's as valuable as others do, but again, he makes $18 million. Drew makes $36. He makes twice as much money. He should be a better player. Like, again, losing Smart, the cost in that trade is also the cost of losing Grant Williams, who is looking pretty damn good for Dallas, and we certainly could use him off the bench. So, I don't know. I mean, this stuff is all tied together. We sacrificed our depth and our kind of gritty, tough guys who people didn't like because they are passionate for 6 really good players. And again, I really like the team we have now, and I think, like, we're good. We're just different. We changed everything around to cater to Missoula, who maybe is a good coach. And again, now our whole strategy seems dependent on making threes, which I kind of hate. And I think the team was more likable when our identity was defending the fuck out of everyone.
Marcus Smart was the king of the bad 3 on this team and chucking threes when we didn't need him to. Like, where does that come from? And to your point about,
I don't agree with that at all.
How many times at the end of games did we see teams shading off of Marcus and the ball go out to him and him just have a look? And it was always Marcus Smart.
It's always the
biggest
Smart.
Shot of the game.
We choked down the stretch against Minnesota because of Marcus Smart. We couldn't close tonight because of Marcus Smart. The ghost of Marcus is just knocking those balls away from Tatum and Brown, and he's dribbling it off their legs. That's Marcus Smart.
So, all right. So
he's a role player.
Let me jump in here because I think that, again, I love Marcus Smart on the team. I was very upset when he left.
Can I say one more thing? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just the not a winning player thing. I just am going to need, like, some evidence again. Again, he came into arguably, if you go back and look at our roster, was drafted to arguably the worst team in the league, and we immediately made the playoffs and never got worse. We only had one season where we stepped back, and that was the awful, crazy year when everyone got hurt, and we were playing with, like, Ogilvy and whatever against the Nets, whatever. But again, the team was always good. Everyone wants to suck off Drew Holiday. Guess what? Drew Holiday was drafted by Philly. They were one of the bottom 5 teams in the East for 2 of his 4 years. He went to New Orleans for 7 years. They made the playoffs twice. Once as an 8 seed and they got swept. The other time it was a 6 seed. Every other year they were 10th or lower. So winning player, again, who controls if you're a winning team? Your best friggin' players. No team is, because of their third best player, is going to be a 1 seed or a 15 seed. Like, contributing to winning does not mean he's carrying a team to wins or losses. Like, again, are the Grizzlies struggling right now? Yes, because they're missing their all-NBA player. They're missing their starting center. They're missing their 2 best bench players, and they have no one to create offense. So, yes, if you're tasking Marcus Smart with being a team's entire offense, are they going to be good? Obviously not, but that's not what he does.
Let me rephrase it. I'll back off the statement that he's not a winning player.
Thank you.
Do you think he was holding the team back?
No, he was propping them up. We got to where we were when we finally stopped getting these idiotic shoot first, ball dominant point guard. Okay, well, look back in history. Ball dominant point guard, Isaiah Thomas. Ball dominant point guard, Kyrie Irving. Ball dominant point guard, Kemba Walker. Those teams were so infuriating for so many years. We finally get rid of those guys, turn the offense over to Marcus Smart. Suddenly, we have an all-time great defense, and we make the finals out of nowhere the first year and are immediately become a contender. So holding them back from what? Everything else was holding them back. They finally gave him the position he was drafted to be in, and the team took off. And until Rob Williams got hurt, for a month or two, looked like the best team in like NBA history. So to say that he was holding them back, again, he's the 3rd best player. It's like he has a lot of shots because that's team's strategy is obviously to not let the 2 best players shoot. So like if your big knock on him was he just wasn't a great shooter, like I think everyone knows he's not the best shooter in the league. He's also not nearly as bad as people make him out to be. Did he miss a lot of shots at the end of the games? Yes. Did he make a ton of clutch plays and shots? Yes. Like people just forget all the good times. The amazing game when he single-handedly basically won the game in the playoffs against Toronto. A literal series-winning Game 7 chase-down block in a Game 7 of a second-round playoff series. Like, the guy just made winning play after winning play after winning play. If you think they're better off with changing around the team, fine. But to act like this addition by subtraction, he had to go, his ego was too big, all of this other nonsense is just like, I don't know what you're watching. And I just think people love to wake up. I'm not saying you, but so many people like to wake up, look at the box score, and just judge this game by that. I've got people who hate him sending me the box scores of Grizzlies games for Marcus Smart. It's like, you've watched this guy for 10 years and you still don't realize that you can't judge his performance by a box score, then like, I just don't know what to tell you.
All right. Jeff, you might have, I just want to say, okay.
No, I'm letting you go.
Forward. So I think, the one thing, and again, big Marcus Smart fan, hate him. I don't want to keep repeating that, but I will. That's how much I like him. But I do say, like,
hold on, we lost you, Gouts. You cut out. Go back to what you were just saying.
All right.
From the start of where you were going to cut in, we lost you.
Okay, so I was saying I didn't want to keep repeating how much I like the guy, but I will because that's how much I like him. However, I've been playing the devil's advocate here because it seems like, I don't want Jeff to feel like we're ganging up on him or anything like that. But I do think it's worth pointing out that,
all right. Well,
you're saying
basement boys killing us. I think what he was going to say is that,
Am I gone again? Did you lose me again?
Totally gone. And so you queued up your point as soon as you took a breath.
Right. All right. Fuck it. I just was going to say, like, you're saying he's a role player, but then you're also like, he came in and made them this, made them that. So it just sometimes I get a little bit lost in a little translation there.
He didn't make them.
I don't think that he was holding the team back. I do think that the ceiling might be a little bit higher with this new roster. But like, and again, I also don't like the idea that Jaylen and Tatum like couldn't be leaders while he was there, because I do think that you either have that or you don't. If you need to get rid of a guy to do that, then. But I also
says more about them than
agree
him.
with the fact that he was the one who was sort of like always the one that was like having the conversation with the refs, always the one that was like almost like calling the play. I do think that it does free up a little bit for them to grow a little bit, and not like a knock on him. I think it's just different. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just different. And that different could be better. I would be fine if we still had Marcus Smart on the team. I'm not saying we need to get rid of him, but I do think that the look and feel of the team now is different, and that might turn out to be better for us. If it isn't, then it's going to be hard to quantify that. But I didn't think he had to go, but I'm excited about where we're going now, and I don't think that I think the ceiling's higher, the risk is also more, which is what I sort of said at the beginning of when the trade first happened.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, to Handler's point, right, it's your best players win you championships and determine if you're a winning team or not. And maybe maybe I acquiesce to what I think Tatum and Brown need to become that in this league and to become an MVP for Tatum and be an all-NBA guy for Brown. But in order for them to get there, I think they had to get Marcus out of the locker room because he had the biggest voice in that locker room. Whether or not it's a knock on Tatum and Brown, that's a different argument. But I think removing Marcus forces them to become those leaders in the locker room and put their imprint on the team because it wasn't their team last year and the years before. It was Smart's team. And that's a problem if he's a role player.
I think that's
period.
Just crazy.
Point blank.
I just disagree with that completely. I think the players can play, role players can lead, veterans can lead. Like that's
but
totally
you
fine.
You have to like he definitely had for a guy like okay, so think about it this way, and again, just playing a little bit devil's advocate here. Like how many role players do you know have like that big of almost like a presence when it comes to like the team? Like I think what Jeff is saying is like maybe he wasn't the leader. Tatum sure was a leader, but it's like there's how many role players are sort of like the ones that are always the one kind of like talking to the refs or calling plays. And I think to his point too, basically not being willing or able, I'm not saying willing because maybe he was fine with it, but it made it like they couldn't take him out to put Derek White in at the end of certain games too. It was like, I don't know. It just feels like that's a pretty long.
That's the second time someone has said that. The guy that Joe refused to take out was Brogdon. Like he should have had White, Smart, Brown, Tatum, and Horford in the game. Like what is this saying? Smart should have been on the bench. So you want to play Rob and Al down the stretch? Like what are we talking about?
I think it varied by night.
I really don't think it did. Like I think it was a common problem that people were bringing up nonstop last year was why does Joe love Malcolm so much? And I thought Malcolm was a good player for us off the bench, but his insistence on closing with Malcolm was psychotic to me. So, I mean, I think everyone agreed Derek White should have been in there.
He is psychotic.
It was that but he just loved playing Smart and Brogdon, which is the part I don't understand, where Smart and White was like a menacing backcourt together on both ends. So, I mean, I'm with you on the White point. I just think kind of different about it. And again, how you said acquiring the different pieces, the Jays needed this around them and that, and like the ceiling of the team is higher, this and that. That's fine. And to me, that's kind of what annoys me about the whole thing. Like, it's not an either or. Saying that, again, it's fine saying the team got better. They added 2 former All-Stars, but I mean, they got 2 guys who are on near max contracts who have been All-Stars. Like, I would hope the team gets better. Now, it should, but acting like that's because Marcus is gone, it's almost like that was just like the cost of doing this. It was like we sold our soul. It almost feels like Marcus is like a martyr. He's like taking a bid for all his boys to be free now.
That's the way I feel about it more, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So I don't think there's any vindication. Like if we win, we're gonna be like, see, we got rid of Marcus and we finally won. It's like we went all in, got 2 All-Stars, and have like one of the
most
gonna definitely teams do that. Of all. But that's like would be the stupidest take. It'd be because we got the other guys. Like if we got rid of Marcus and didn't add anyone and then won, like what the Sixers are doing with Harden, then it would be like, oh shit, maybe this is addition by subtraction. That's not what happened. We gave up a bunch of shit to get 2 other former All-Stars. Again, we have 4 guys making 35 plus or whatever $1 million. Like that's almost you could almost argue it's like a super team. Like it's just a different level. So swapping out Smart and 3 other role players for 2 pseudo at least stars, like we can argue whether they're stars, All-Stars, superstars, this, that, whatever. But it's like if you say the team's better, it's because of the guys we got. Saying that we're better because of guys we got rid of who have been in our foxhole for so long and like done these battles and made it so far.
He is a good foxhole guy, Jeff. You have to admit that.
Yeah, so it's like if we win,
great foxhole guy.
Who would you rather in your foxhole, Marcus Smart or Porzingis? Like, you're at war. Cornette, yeah. Marcus Smart or Porzingis in a foxhole in war. Who would you rather in that foxhole with you right now? Take the basketball out of it. You're at war. I'm asking Jeff.
Yeah, no, Smart.
Good answer, because Porzingis is also way too fucking tall to be in a foxhole. So that was also a trick question in that sense.
Well, and the other thing on those guys too, you keep saying this. I know you backed off it a little, but the winning player thing. The hell has Porzingis ever won? He's played in 6 playoff games in his career. Once he's made the playoffs and lost in the first round, that only series. So, like, such a winning player. We don't even know if this guy can play in, like, any big games. If he stays on the court, like, yeah, he looks tantalizing at times, but there's a reason he's never been on a team that has made it out of the first round. He's been on 1 playoff team, but Smart's not a winning player who's battling into the conference finals every single year. And I mean, again, there's layers to all this stuff, but like,
so that's my point though. You're saying that, but you're saying he's a role. So it's like they're getting the.
I'm more just pushing back to anyone saying he's not a winning player.
Too. They're also adding the Jays during that run too. Like,
yeah,
he got us the first year he was here. He was the first one to be in there. But
again, I'm not saying there's
a little bit of having your cake and eating it too. Again,
I was just pushing back because it was brought up that he's not a winning player. So I'm just pointing out all these flaws in that logic. I'm saying the logic of him being a role player and leading, like getting them to the conference finals and all that. It's there's a little bit of a disconnect there, right? Again, I'm not saying they made it there because of him, but I'm just saying based on his career in playing basketball, to say that he's anything but a winning player is just completely unfounded. Is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's because of him. I'm just saying that statement in itself is ludicrous.
Just more a jab for me bringing that up because he's the only friggin' guy in the NBA. It feels to me like, and you're the sicko handler. I'm not. When it comes to watching the rest of the league, he's the only guy in the league who was just tagged in like hashtag winning plays, hashtag winning player. It's like, give me a break with this. Like, come on. Like, it just became too much. Like, give me a break. He's not this, like, coveted winning player.
But, like, he is.
So maybe that's
the thing.
Semantics,
look what they traded to get him. The fact that they gave up 2 first-round picks and a pseudo-star player shows how he's viewed around the league. Like, again.
Well, that was a 3-team.
And the reason it's hard to say these other examples, it goes to the uniqueness of how special it is to have a role player who is that good and that beloved. And you need role players. That's how you win. It's a team sport. Look at all these super teams that try to just throw together 4 stars. And I'm not even talking about the Celtics. Look at teams like the Nets in past years, those old Lakers teams, the Suns, the Clippers right now. It's a diminishing return on assets at a certain point. You can't have 4 guys around there who need the ball and have to score. You need guys who will just dive on the floor and do all this other stupid shit. And that's why people loved him. And again, we're searching for who that guy is. Do we, like, all the stuff you're complaining about Smart is like, yeah, sometimes he was the only one doing that. He was the only one who you knew always gave a shit. Think back at some of those years and some of how frustrating the Celtics were to watch. The one consistent was Smart, always gave a fuck. Porzingis, I'm not saying doesn't, but there's no proof so far in his career that he's a big give-a-fuck guy.
Yeah, I don't know. 4 for 14 tonight, 0 for 3 from 3. And another loss for the Grizzlies.
Love it. Yeah.
Winning player.
When he's thrust into a big role, that's tough.
All right. I feel like we could probably go on about this for like forever. We could go into the wee hours of the night. Some of us had to stay up and upload the podcast, though, so I'm going to, unless anyone has any new information, new take to add to the conversation, I'm going to call an armistice between us. Again, my thing is love them, but I'm okay with moving on. I know we still have Marcus Smart in our intro song. That to me, that's about what that could be his memory on the show. I think moving forward, we got to roll with this team. But good debate between the two of you guys. That was good to see.
It's not rolling with the team. Again, I don't want to get confused that there's some like. Now,
no, I know
the team. It's just acting like again.
I know.
Move has nothing to do with whether, like, saying it was good to get rid of him is different than saying like we made good moves. I think both. I think we could have said like I hated losing him and I loved him and I wish he was on the team, and also say like I understand moves and obviously hopefully it works out and like we win the title 5 years in a row would be awesome. That doesn't mean that it was Smart was bad or we had to get rid of him. Like again, it's pretty easy to separate the two things. I think.
All right. So, with that, we're going to move to around the NBA. We're going to go, as I think, Jeff, I might coin that, to our resident sicko, Chuddy, on just the NBA. There was a lot of games on tonight. We had we had no games yesterday, actually. I hope everyone got out and voted because we don't have any NBA games because of that. So, make the most of it. Did anyone here vote?
I just want to say that I actually abstained out of protest for the NBA not scheduling any games. So to act like since I can't go vote for my councilman in the morning means that when I come home at night I can't watch any basketball. Like out of pure hatred for that, I refuse to ever.
At least say that for the midterms years. An off year like this. Come on, NBA, you can have a few.
What was it? Just local elections? Like what do you?
There's no federal elections, or some states I guess probably had some stuff. I know that Ohio just legalized weed.
Oh, chill.
Yeah.
Very chill.
If that's the price it pays for the Cavs not to play, so be it. All right, but what do you have? What do you have, Chud?
Yeah.
I was talking politics. What do you have, Chud?
Nothing crazy. I mean, there was a lot of good games today. Nothing crazy, and I haven't been able to digest too much since Celtics were the early game, and I was mostly focused on that. But the biggest news: Jamal Murray hamstring injury, going to be out at least a month. Just killer blow. Obviously, we saw how much of a juggernaut that team is when healthy. They'll be able to tread water fine, but a guy who's had injury issues and the clear favorites to win the title again, that would obviously just be a crushing blow if he can't come back. I'm sure they'll be super cautious and wait till he's 100%, but obviously huge deal, something to monitor. Next thing I had really on my list was just the overall level of play and talent across the league. I think there's just so much negativity in the world and so many people focusing on the couple guys who are hurt, load managing, this and that, but I want to focus on every single team in the league is fun. Every single night, except for stupid last night, you look at the slate and there's 8-10 exciting games. I'm looking at it in contrast. I'm obviously a huge football fan too, but I wake up on these NFL Sundays, look at the slate, and I'm like, these games are so bad. If it wasn't for fantasy and betting, none of these games are intriguing at all. Almost every night in the NBA, I look at a game, even two teams that aren't good, have good, exciting players. As just someone who loves basketball, just is generally an optimism. I feel like we're so lucky as hoop heads and basketball fans to just have all these good and intriguing teams and players, and so many teams are fun. The level of play is really high for the regular season, so just hoping that continues. Blessed to be able to watch it. Another cool bit of news I saw is that Silver is considering, so I think he used the word inevitable in saying the All-Star game would become USA against the world, which I think is very cool on the surface. I'm a little confused about how it would
just NBA players?
The NBA All-Star.
I don't know, that's a stupid question.
Well, if there are players who aren't in the NBA that are good enough to be in the NBA All-Star game, I'm down to talk. But I don't think that was the idea. Again, I think it might get weird with what if one year, there's only 8 good international players, then what? Are you picking Joe Ingles as the 12th man on the All-Star team just to make it work? Or I don't know how they could tweak it, but on the surface, a USA versus world, at least top 5 or 7 would be.
What would that
squad
look like? What would that squad look
obviously
right now?
Luka, Jokic. Giannis. I don't know what Embiid is counting as these days. Shea is Canadian.
He has to be world, right?
Shea's Canadian. Okay,
So just Shea, Luka, Giannis, and Jokic. They've got. I think you could argue 4 of the best 5 guys right now are international. And then USA, you've got Tatum, probably LeBron and KD still going at it. So I don't know. I haven't done a full breakdown, but I think you could make some pretty star-studded lineups. And again, if you actually got the guys to care, that would be fun as hell. So I don't know how they're going to make it work, but if they can find a cool way to do it, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't it going to East and West this year?
It is.
Has that already been discussed?
Yeah. I don't know if it's for this year or next year, but yeah, I think they are going back to
Which is,
West, I don't know.
I'm glad of that. I haven't really liked
the draft was cool,
the draft
but
is entertaining.
it got old.
Yeah.
It's cool. It makes the draft thing cool, but it kind of waters down the game a little bit.
Bring back East and West and have every player wear their jersey.
Yeah.
Do that fixed.
Yes. Absolutely.
In on that. Definitely in on that. Another thing I saw that they were considering, that was just a little tweak, was to make the draft 2 days, just one night for each round, which for sickos like me is
ridiculous.
Awesome. More to consume. Absolutely love it. Can't wait to watch the second round for 6 hours.
Oh my god,
that's gonna be awesome. On that,
it'll probably be cool trades. Give more time for trades.
Definitely, give more time for everything. Just more time. It's all about time. On that draft note, last night was tip-off of college basketball. Should be fun. Don't know if you guys give a shit at all about college basketball, but it was carrying a lot of water with the lack of voting night.
Right?
Michigan State lost. I forget to who.
JMU.
That was 2 nights ago. Oh yeah, it's JMU. I was watching Auburn Baylor last night. It was a fun game. Jacoby Walter on Baylor looked really good. I know there's a lot of good players I'm excited to watch, but it is just, I used to be such a bigger college basketball fan, and I think part of it is I was looking at a mock draft, and there's only not even half the lottery are guys playing in college. So between all these G League guys, all these overseas guys, and it is what it is. I don't really blame the players. It's probably the NCAA who let this happen over time. But I I feel like it was just watered down the product, especially to guys who are like me. A lot of it is, I want to see some of these prospects and stuff, and so few of them are playing in college. Kind of a buzzkill, but I will obviously watch a shitload of college basketball no matter what.
For someone who doesn't watch a lot of college basketball, who are like must-watch players early on in the season?
So Isaiah Collier from USC is, I think, supposed to be like the guy. He's like a do-it-all guard for the Trojans. Obviously, Bronny James is on that team too if he can get on the court, so that they should just be fun to watch. And then, it's your usual. Duke has a couple guys projected to go high. Kentucky has a couple guys. But again, other than that, like the top, I think 4 of the top 5 guys other than Collier were either G League or international. So
okay.
It's we'll see. Obviously all that changes, this and that, so it is what it is. But college basketball has never been about just watching it in that sense, but it is kind of more fun when the best players who are coming into the draft are in college, obviously. So we'll see how that goes on. My other 2 things, kind of silly. One, I was just watching on League Pass the other night, the Spurs, and I noticed that when the away team gets introduced, the music they play is the Succession theme, which I thought was hilarious. Just nice touch. So touche to there.
The away team gets that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That song's sick. I feel like I'd be.
I know. So I was turning on it myself because it is kind of a sick song, and the Raptors were dancing to it and getting into it. Obviously liked it, which was funny. But I also thought it was funny if the idea is it's an intro about introducing just a bunch of clowns is the show. So I don't know. I'm assuming that's what they were going for. But either way,
unless it's just a Tom Wambsgans montage on the Jumbotron,
Yeah.
I feel like that song is. I would actually choose that song. I think if I was
it was controversial. Maybe they'll find that it's too motivating for opponents and they'll change it. So I don't know. And then the last thing I was going to say was the Houston Rockets, old friend Ime Udoka's got them playing some decent ball after they were kind of a laughing stock. At the first few games, people questioned a lot of their offseason moves, but they've dialed in. They were absolutely beating the shit out of the AD-less Lakers tonight, which I think that win would take them over 500. They're playing pretty good ball on both ends, so good for our former coach. And then the last thing I had on that note, did anyone see the interview with Jeezy and Niall Long?
No, I saw it on my feed. I didn't watch it. What was the summary?
Well, the highlight was Jeezy, and I'm just going to use some gentler language, but he essentially said, "Real men don't cheat," which kind of led to an interesting back and forth. So I don't know if anyone ever knows of a time when Ime and Jeezy will cross paths. I'm gonna need the video of that.
I'm gonna need Jeezy courtside at the Hawks game.
It was
it
was an aggressive interview. There was some serious heat in the room, some tension
going on.
But it was hard not to laugh, just kind of knowing some backstory on that. So thought that was a nice way to close the pod, unless you guys have any other takes.
Yeah, I do just have one question. Did the Suns play tonight?
They did.
Did Devin Booker play?
I think he played. Did Booker play? Beal played. I know Beal was back, and they said
no, he didn't play. I already know the answer. He didn't play.
All right. So here's the thing. I think we have to separate load management from being injured. If he misses 5 games in a row, it's not load management.
Beal
played. Beal made his debut. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, Booker obviously has an injury. So
a calf strain.
Yeah, that's not a good injury for a basketball player.
I'm not buying that stock. I'm not buying any Sun stock.
I'm not either. I'm just saying, if he's load managing, it's one thing. They did win the game in overtime, by the way.
They did, yeah.
But
Better. I just think Jeff, you might not. I mentioned on my solo pod. I just don't like Devin Booker. I think he's just a little.
I don't like him. I don't like him, but I just respect how good he is at basketball.
Yeah, again, if you play 1 out of every 3 games, you'll put up some good stats.
And again, that's not historically. He's not that guy. He's been injured this year. I just don't think a fair shake on him. If this rate of play continues for the whole season, then fine. But that's not historically has not been the case.
I want a new segment in Around the League. Booker Watch.
Booker Watch. That's fine.
I'm gonna see. I gotta work on the graphics. I'd love to get something over my head that just I might get the Woody Page. The
whiteboard
games that Booker's missed. Just have a tally going. Once I get my studio set up, I'm in between studios right now. All right, so that's all you have. Jeff, do you have anything to add? Just anything you observed throughout the season around the league, or
No, not really. I wanted to say thank you guys for having me on. It's been an honor. Anybody who made it through that smart debate, I commend you. Thanks for being a loyal Chuddy's Corner listener.
Yeah, we are putting the Chudlings to the absolute
happy to
best
have you
tonight.
on. Appreciate it. Hopefully you'll continue to join us. We can revisit some of these conversations down the road. Hopefully we'll have much more to talk about. So it's definitely always good to have a guest. Brought some great takes, some clearly good analysis. We always appreciate that. We always preach interaction, and huge props to Cupka for coming on here and having the nerve to sit there and go head to head as I absolutely steamrolled him.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. Well, I was just going to say that I second most of that, but I thought it was a nice, good spirited debate.
No, it was.
Absolutely. It was great. It was great to have you on, and definitely absolutely down to have a recurring guest role for the pod. Always welcome to have anyone. And again, any Chudlings, if you made it through that Marcus Smart debate, you are welcome on the podcast. If you turned it off halfway through, you gotta show a little bit more gusto for us. But again, great show, guys. We're just past 11 o'clock Eastern time. So everyone, podcast will be out. Make sure you like, subscribe, everything you need to do to get the podcast, the alerts and everything like that. Get those numbers up for us. And again, for all your real estate needs, nickpareno.com. That's all for Chuddy's Corner. I am your host, Doug Outs, as always with King Chuddy. And again, special thanks to Jeff Cupka, NBA analyst, for coming on. Have a good night, guys.
Peace out, Chuddy heads.